Hey guys, welcome back to Freestyle Friday. Mikki Campbell here. For those of you that have been following my show at all, you know on Tuesdays I put out Transformation Talk Tuesday. That's when I discuss everything that's involved in a transformation journey to try to help as many people as I can overcome the obstacles that inevitably come up along the way during any transformation process. Having been there myself, I'm very passionate about that. But Fridays is a Freestyle Friday, and that's just kind of where I try to entertain you a little bit with some of the stories from my past. Recently, I've been discussing the early days of my wrestling career. Ricky Regal and I, when we were the Lightning Express, even back to when I first started out my first match. So if you haven't seen any of those, scroll back through and catch some of them. They're fairly entertaining at my own expense, if you will. But if you can't laugh at yourself, who can you laugh at, right? But no laughing matter, Ricky and I took professional wrestling very seriously. Believe it or not, some people may have misconceptions over that because we were so young. I mean, you got to keep in mind, when we started in that industry, we were 18 years old, and we were regularly booked by the time we were 19 all over the Southeast, and really enjoying life, you know, as two 19-year-old kids. So a lot of people didn't realize how seriously we took it, but we put a lot into training. We put a lot into trying to display professionalism. Back then, everything was judged from the way you carried your luggage into the dressing room, what time you showed up, how you were dressed when you got there, how you shook everybody's hands, who you spoke to, who you didn't speak to, just your overall mannerisms and everything. You were constantly being tested by the older guys to make sure that you deserved to be a part of that community. So we were trying to always be on our toes and do what was expected of us. And we took great pride in that. And so even down to the way you laced your boots before you went out for your match, and what time you got ready in comparison to when your match was on the card, everything. There were so many tests that you just had to learn, and then learn how to pass, and then learn how to do again and build off of to develop trust amongst these guys. Well, one of the things was, you know, you never wrestled when you weren't in a state to be sure you could protect the guy that you were wrestling with, or against, if you will, your opponent. And so we took that very seriously, and we made sure that every time we showed up for a wrestling event, we were in the proper frame of mind, in the proper state, and everything physically, and ready to do our best to give the fans everything that they expected, and to protect the guys that we were working with, and make us all look good, and make our matches something that people would enjoy and talk about. But when we weren't in that condition and we weren't in that shape, we wouldn't get in the ring and jeopardize, number one, the guy that was in the ring trusting us, number two, our self-respect by getting in and bumbling and doing things that we shouldn't do. So I said all that to say, this one particular weekend, we didn't have a booking. We decided that we weren't going to actively seek one. We just felt like it was a sign that maybe we needed to take the weekend off and enjoy ourselves. A couple of friends of ours were booked on a show in Columbia, South Carolina, and the promoter there, he hadn't booked us. He assumed that we were already booked, so he didn't book us. We weren't booked, and we decided not to seek any bookings for that weekend, take the weekend off and enjoy ourselves. But we hadn't seen our buddy Daryl Van Horn in quite some time, and he was booked on that show. Another buddy of ours, SWAT, was booked on that show as well, and SWAT lived in the Greenville area closer to where we lived. So we decided that we were going to get in the car and ride down to this show with SWAT. Now the title of this video infers that here we are in trouble with the police again, and guys, you're not going to believe this one. So we go to the show, and Ricky and I have a couple of adult beverages on the way. We're enjoying ourselves, we're off, we're kind of kicked back and relaxing, and we didn't even bring our wrestling gear. This goes back to what I was saying earlier. Typically back then, it was common courtesy if you showed up at someone's show to have your gear handy and be available for them if they needed you to fill in, and you'd work out rates and whatever based off of whatever the situation was. That was just a general thing. If you showed up at a show, you did that. Well, we didn't want to work that weekend, so we didn't take our gear, and which, you know, kind of is not the right thing to do, but knowing that we were going to be partaking of adult beverages and having a good time and enjoying our night off, then it was kind of the right thing to do, because we shouldn't have gotten in the ring, and we shouldn't have, the promoter shouldn't have even wanted us in the ring, but he did. So we get there and he's offended that we don't have our gear and we don't want to work for him. He takes it personal that for whatever reason we don't want to work for him. That wasn't the case. We wouldn't have wanted to work for Vince McMahon or Ted Turner that night. You know, we weren't prepared to work. We were off and we were enjoying ourselves, and that's what we were there to do. Hang out with our buddies after the show, have a good time before the show, sit back and chill out and watch a little bit of wrestling and enjoy our life and eat a little popcorn, if you will, right? So SWAT wrestles, and SWAT ends up getting a shiner in his match. Guy ended up kicking him in the face, I believe, or maybe headbutt. I don't remember what it was, but I remember his eyes swelled shut immediately. And so Ricky and I go out to the car. We find a towel or a rag or a t-shirt or something. We wrap up some ice and we take it in the restroom for SWAT to be able to ice his eye. Because he's our ride home. He needs to be able to see out of both eyes, right? Nah, he's our buddy and we were looking out for him. So we're in the restroom for quite some time. Daryl Van Horn makes his way over to the restroom, and we're all standing around shooting the breeze, making sure SWAT's keeping ice on his eye. There are no fans coming in. There's nothing going on. It's a private area, right? So we're just trying to make sure that our buddy isn't going to lose his eye, or, you know, we need to figure out another way to get home, or what the case may be, and we're trying to take care of our friend. Anyways, us being in there for an extended period of time, after the show, the promoter comes up and basically snubs us and says, "I can't believe you guys wouldn't work for me." And we were like, "Hey, bro, it's no offense and no dig towards you. We would love to work some of your shows sometimes. Here's our card. Give us a call. If we were booked, we would have showed up ready to work, but we weren't booked. We just came to hang out." "Well, you should have brought your gear." "Yeah, we probably should have, but we knew we were going to have a couple of drinks before we got here. We wouldn't have been in a position to be able to work for you properly anyway. We were just trying to come down and hang out with our friends. Maybe we should have stayed away from your show and met up with our friends after the show or something else. We're sorry, we didn't mean to disrespect you." He's like, "Yo, whatever." We all get in the car. We get about 5, maybe 10 minutes down the road from the venue, and hear blue lights everywhere. So we're like, what the heck? So we're getting pulled over, right? The cop comes up to the vehicle, pulls all of us out of the car immediately. He's got flashlights shining on us, and he's not in a real good mood. And he's like, "Just go ahead and tell me now. Don't make me tear this car up." And we're like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Where's the dope at?" We said, "What dope? What are you talking about?" He said, "I got a call from the high school from one of the promoters there that you guys were in the bathroom doing steroids and selling dope." So, here we are in the middle of drug trouble again. Neither one of us had ever done any drugs. Neither one of us had ever done any steroids. Neither one of us even really knew what any of that looked like. We were kids. We knew what liquor and beer looked like, and that was it. And so we were like, "What are you talking about? We don't have any drugs. We haven't sold any drugs." We were in the bathroom. We showed him SWAT's eye. We were in the bathroom trying to ice our buddy's eye, make sure he was okay. We don't have any drugs. We don't do any drugs. We don't sell any drugs. Long story short, the guy goes through the entire car. I mean, he does a complete felony takedown search on us on the side of the road somewhere in the backwoods of Lexington, South Carolina. And obviously he didn't find anything. So he's mad about that, right? And we tell him that we can't believe that this promoter called him with this bogus story. We're as upset and offended as he is, if not more, obviously, because now we've wasted all our time, and it's after midnight. And in South Carolina at that time, you couldn't get any beer after midnight on a Saturday. So now, not only are we on the side of the road and stuff, but now we're out of beer, and the night's over pretty much, right? We find our way into drug bust and trouble all the time when all we were two kids trying to live a dream, right? But a couple of weeks later, this is where this story kind of got really funny for me. We were doing an outside show for Southern Championship Wrestling. It was at a flea market type area, but it was an outside show. It was a benefit for some kid, and they had a tent set up for us to dress in, and the show was in the middle of the field there. And we had a great time too. Another story will come out of that show itself. But we're getting ready to do that show. Wahoo McDaniel's on the card, and Wahoo McDaniel's had become like I never would say a father figure to me, but he was somebody that was very experienced in the business. Somebody was a childhood hero of mine, and somebody took his time to explain things business-wise to Ricky and myself and smarten us up on a lot of things of the business that we needed to know. Well, we're telling this story about the night that we got stopped in Lexington for doing steroids and selling dope in the bathroom, and he's laughing his tail off. Well, Ricky goes outside the tent to get some air because there was like 20 guys in his tent. It was getting kind of warm. It was the middle of summertime. Ricky goes outside to get some air. He comes back in. He's like, Stump. He still called me Stump at the time. Stump, man, you ain't gonna believe who's here. I said, who's here? He calls the promoter's name. I said, you kidding me? So I go outside, and the promoter has pulled up in a car, and he's telling the promoter of the show that we're doing about us and who we were. Little did he know the promoter of the show that we were doing, SCW, was Paul Helms, who was like a father type figure to Ricky and I, who was there for us. And when we first broke into business, he was my first match, and he looked out for us, and he knew we didn't do dope, and he knew we didn't do steroids. So he wasn't buying what this particular promoter was selling. But I come out, and verbal exchange happens between me and that promoter. Next thing I know, there are wrestlers and everybody in between us holding me back, holding him back. They weren't really holding him too much, I'm just going to be honest with you. But Wahoo comes out of the tent, and Wahoo called me Flame, and he yells, Flame, what's going on over there? And I said, that's that promoter I was just telling you about. He tosses me the keys to his truck. He says, you know where I keep Blue? Finish this thing. So basically, Wahoo was telling me to get his gun out from under the seat of his truck and end this story. But obviously I didn't do that and wouldn't have done that, and Wahoo was just joking too. So it was all just a joke, it was all just fun, but it wasn't a joke that the guy called the police on us, and it wasn't a joke that we had heat for a long time, and I don't think that ever got settled. It kind of just went away because the guy stopped running shows, and as far as I knew, left the wrestling industry. We never crossed paths again. I hope he's doing well. I hope things worked out good for him, but I promise you guys, there was no dope being sold and no steroids being done in that bathroom that night. We were simply icing the eye of a friend that had been injured on this guy's show. So stay tuned for more Cops, Troubles, and Lightning Express. We got the House of Pain coming up, different stories from the House of Pain, some of the stuff from my single career, some other things too. You know, it's not all just going to be about wrestling, but I'm kind of hung up in that niche right now. I actually haven't even talked about wrestling publicly for over 10 years. So this is a kind of a new thing for me. I'm enjoying it a little bit. I hope you're enjoying it. If you are, please comment below and let me know. Please let me know if you've heard any stories that you'd like to hear me describe in detail. I will be keeping everything G-rated on this show though, because I do still have family that watches, and they don't need to know all the Extreme Dream secrets. Okay, you guys have a great weekend. God bless. Thank you for tuning in. Oh, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. You'll get a notification every time I put out content. I try to put out content at least 2 to 3 times a week. Freestyle Friday every Friday, Transformation Talk every Tuesday.